Hello, my name is Sarah Morgenstern, and I'm a venture partner at Flourish Ventures. Welcome to a special Flourish panel discussion in celebration of Women's History Month. Today, we're honored to host top female executives from 4 cutting-edge FinTech and InsurTech startups: Tesouro, Spade, Vellum, and Skipify. The starting point for our conversation is stark. Women currently hold fewer than 1/3 of senior finance positions. Yet research consistently shows that more balanced gender leadership fosters innovation and improves financial outcomes. So we still have a lot of work to do as a FinTech community to build a more diverse and inclusive culture. Against that backdrop, our panelists today will provide insights into their personal journeys, share their approaches to leadership and managing diverse teams, and offer reflections on challenges they faced and lessons learned. We are so truly grateful to this incredible group of operators for joining us today. With that, let's dive in. So to start, can each of you briefly introduce yourselves and your company and share your journey into the financial services sector and your current startup? And Angie, maybe we'll kick off with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you again so much for having us. Very excited to be a part of this amazing panel. I am Angie Emmon. I am co-founder of Tesouro, and Tesouro is the first processor built for the embedded finance industry. My journey into FinTech didn't start necessarily with me putting a stake in the ground that I'm going to be a FinTech founder. I don't even think the word FinTech was a thing. I graduated out of, a finance major and thought I would take a very traditional, I think finance career path. Life and careers kind of led me to Fifth Third Processing Solutions, which has now evolved into WorldPay, one of the largest processors out there. And that's where really kind of my passion for the problem that I'm now solving started, right? So it took me on a 12-year journey of embedded payments, starting different parts of the payment facilitator industry and continuing to work towards how do you make this an easier process for software companies to embed payments. And so it was just a natural progression into FinTech, where I became super passionate about a problem, which then led me to co-found Tesouro, where we're solving those problems today.
Thank you. Tess, over to you. Tell us about your story and background.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Tess Block. I'm one of the co-founders of Spade. We provide real-time merchant intelligence for the card ecosystem. Uh, I started my career in fintech a little bit accidentally. When I was a freshman at Stanford, my friends introduced me to this cool new app called Venmo. I loved it. I sent a cold email. I talked my way into an internship, and I really just fell in love with the fintech world, with kind of seeing the complexity, things like the payment rails, the regulatory ecosystem, but also seeing the real and meaningful impact it could have on consumers' lives and the way that they interacted with others. So I took time off from school. I worked there full time for a while. I eventually went back, went a bit more of a traditional route, working in management consulting for a bit, and then returned to my passion for fintech, joining Pinwheel, the payroll connectivity API, as chief of staff and head of operations. I'd seen kind of throughout my career the poor quality of transaction data get in the way of innovation. So when I met my co-founders at Spade and had the opportunity to really help solve that problem, I leaped at it.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here today. Jules, take us to InsurTech land.
Sure, absolutely. Jules Muir, founder and CEO of Vellum, which is a data and analytics platform for the insurance and reinsurance industry. Before Vellum, I spent close to 20 years in the insurance industry, and it sounds like a theme that is prevalent on this panel was somewhat accidental. I certainly did not grow up with a belief that I was going to jump into the exciting world of reinsurance, but I started my career as a reinsurance broker. Thought I'd be there for a year till I figured out what I really wanted to do, and here I am still in the industry. But I was there as a broker for 4 years, went back to school, and then I sat in a few other seats in the industry. I was part of the insurance practice at McKinsey. Then I joined essentially a startup insurance company. And most recently, I was the COO of a insurtech focused on the small business insurance space. And it was in all of these different seats that I just started to see the lack of plumbing, for lack of a better word, that helps connect the front of the value chain to the back of the value chain. And without boring you too much on sort of what the insurance implications to all of that are, It's fair to say that data not making it effectively and efficiently to the back of the value chain is a problem that if we don't tackle covering some of the emerging risks that are surfacing, whether it be cyber threats or climate change, will be much more difficult to solve if we don't have the ecosystem collectively working together with the same source of truth. And so that is what has led to the founding of Vellum, and excited to take on that challenge.
Thank you so much. And then Linda, intro from your end.
Hi, yes. So fortunate and grateful to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Sue. I'm currently the Chief Commercial Officer at Skipify. And I've been very fortunate to be an investor, an entrepreneur, an operator in e-commerce, technology, and FinTech for the last 15 years. And prior to joining Skipify, I co-founded an e-commerce technology and services company where I got to work with brands every day. And a piece of that was recognizing that there was a big gap in checkout in payments, where that experience really isn't what brands or merchants or shoppers wanted. And I had the opportunity to meet Skipify, where we are a fintech company that is simplifying and enhancing the checkout experience. And we bring a next gen digital wallet that connects merchants, shoppers, and financial institutions into the moment of purchase. And I thought that was such a kind of mind-boggling way of solving what I thought was a really big pain point in the checkout space. And that's how I got into payments and fintech. And I'm very excited to be here.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Well, thank you. You're all playing in such impactful and interesting spaces in the B2B software space. But let's learn more about what you do every day. So, Angie, maybe if we could start with you, if you could tell us more about your role and what you're focused on day to day and sort of what energizes you about your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we kind of break things down into our founder role versus our day-to-day jobs that we have. And my day-to-day functional role is really focused on all things from the partner experience throughout the entire partner journey here at Tesouro. And so right now, that's really kind of focused on ensuring that we're building a product that our partners want to buy, and how we position that product to our partners and prospects, and how we can articulate that value, right? Which ultimately leads them to buying from us. Or as I like to say, if I'm not solving real problems for them, I haven't done my job. So right now, it's really more of kind of that sales and revenue role, taking that prospect and partner feedback back to product and engineering to create an amazing feedback loop, and staying just ahead of the partner journey as we continue to grow. And just hands down, the most energizing part of that is when we are speaking with our partners and potential partners, when they share with us that what we're building will create real value for them and solve those real problems. And it's super addicting to when we get that reaction, and it never gets old.
I imagine that's incredibly gratifying. Thank you. Linda, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like my answer is almost very, very similar. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer, so my domain is sales, channel partnerships, marketing, and account management. And what it really means is that we're talking to our external community, our merchants, our partners, and bringing that information back to our internal team's product, and trying to improve the product that we have to better serve that community. And my goal within the company is to ensure that Skipify's presence in the market is ever growing. And what that translates into is that merchants are partners and are immediately understanding the value that Skipify brings. It is a crowded space. So what unique differentiators do we as a startup have to bring? And that really those merchants and partners end up clamoring to work with us, right? And that also really at the end of the day is a level of service that each of us expect, and certainly our prospects expect as well. And that customers couldn't be happier and growing their presence with us. And internally, for me, the goal is to ensure that my teams are humming along. They are working really well async, right? They don't need me to be in every meeting or every interaction. They are able to be empowered to do what they do. And that's super, super important for me. I love this stage of a startup because that also means my day-to-day doesn't just involve my functions. It also means that I can look beyond that to some of the other functions and kind of be the thought partners to my counterparts throughout the company.
Piggybacking on that, Linda, appreciate the focus on sort of team. How do you all approach building teams and cultivating unique organizational culture? Would be curious any specific strategies or principles that you use to foster an innovative work environment. Tess, maybe if you want to kick us off on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of startups can kind of take the mentality of moving fast and breaking things, working 24/7, and sort of accept that they're going to burn people out. And that's a very different approach from what we've taken. Our mentality is really to lead with empathy and to invest in our people because we think that's the way that we're going to succeed. And so that has meant putting in time and effort, being intentional about the way that we support our people and support our team. And an example of that is we, at the seed stage, created a performance management structure and leveling expectations because we wanted to be really clear with our team about what it takes to succeed at Spade. And that focuses not just on what you do, but also how you do it. And it's given our team a lot of clarity around what the expectations are. It's given them the time and space to really think about what their growth and development paths look like at Spade. And we've had managers have regular conversations with them about that and make sure that they see the opportunity, not just for the business to grow, but for them to grow as individuals. And it did take time, it did take effort, but ultimately the team saw the benefit. And we've also seen the benefit because it's helped us hold people accountable. It's helped us give more actionable feedback. And it's really been beneficial for everyone. And I think it's something I always recommend startups do early and do more things to invest in their people early rather than seeing them as just kind of a means to an end.
So a very thoughtful and deliberate approach to performance management, even at the earliest stages. Really appreciate that. Others?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with, the intentionality and starting early has to happen. And it's about making that time in that space to do it. When there's a lot of things kind of coming at you, right? Sometimes we can lose focus on this, and it's super important. And it is something that we also at Tesouro have spent a lot of time from the very beginning. I think we've done a pretty good job as this because we do actually a twice a year employee NPS score to measure that. And we're, trending over 90, which is fantastic. But for us, it really started with ensuring the alignment to the Tesouro mission, right? So my co-founder and I are really passionate about what we are building and the problems that we're solving. So even starting in the interview process, we share this and see if there's, kind of the spark that lights up with who we're talking to. And it's also important that we see, can they see how they can contribute to solving the problems and making a real difference. And that's really key for us so that it starts kind of in that interview process. And we know that if we can, align on this first as a team and have that common ground to start, as we grow, as that inevitable change occurs, as more pressure comes in, we know that we can always come back to that common ground. And the other thing that was really important to us in building the culture from the beginning was creating a space of, that is the team is curious, that they feel open to asking questions, where they're encouraged to have a point of view about something. Doesn't mean that, we'll always agree or align, but we can have those healthy discussions. Eventually decisions do need to be made, right? But that everyone kind of feels empowered and heard has been, really important. So no matter what our differences are, we all know that we're a team with a shared mission and a space to, feel empowered and heard. And I think that's been really critical to the culture that we've developed here at Tesouro.
Can we maybe just pause? Over 90 at Tesouro NPS score. Amazing.
Pretty extraordinary.
It's
Absolutely.
really amazing.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
the team is amazing. They're awesome.
starts at the top. Jules, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, it was just, it's interesting because I think one of the dynamics, at least we have in front of us, is also we're doing it all remote. There's a few of us that are in New York, but a lot of our team that we're building are elsewhere. And so as we kind of think about cultivating and building teams, part of it is also just getting to know people as people outside of the work product. And absolutely agree with you, the mission is critical and having alignment around that is critical. But I feel like if people are there for each other, also it tends to go a long way, because maybe they don't always, maybe this is unique to the wonderful world of insurance and reinsurance, but they don't always connect the dots immediately to the bigger picture of the task in front of them. But if they understand that they're helping you or helping the person, metaphorically next to them, that also helps to go a long way. And so just trying to do those small casual moments on a regular basis as a way to create comfort for asking questions and pushing back, because we found if we didn't invest in that, it was quiet, and quiet virtually is not necessarily the place you want to be.
Okay. Appreciate that on tips and tricks for sort of the work from home environment. Jules, maybe sticking with you for a second and shifting gears to a separate topic.
Sure.
Having a strong support network is so important for entrepreneurs. So can you talk with us a little bit about how you cultivated your professional and personal networks, and any specific relationships or communities that have been particularly pivotal in your journey?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think I'll start by saying I would never call myself the best networker. It is not something that I have ever actively tried to do with intentionality. But one of the nice things about starting your career in client service is you learn pretty quickly the importance of relationships, and they actually often are much more important than a lot of the other aspects when you're building relationships and you're trying to move commercial relationships forward. And so as I've had to kind of think about asking my network for help, which again, not the most comfortable thing to do, I've sort of bucketed into two buckets, right? So one is sort of the startup questions, and the other is sort of the insurance specific expertise and guidance I might need. And the startup one is creating a network of other founders, whether it be folks that you go to school with, or folks, for example, from my prior job, there's a handful of us now out trying to found new things. It's a very safe space where it's a two-way street, which makes it really easy. Like some days I'm asking for help, some days they're asking for help. So you feel like you're collectively moving together, which is a nice dynamic to have, whether it be questions about fundraising or questions about, hey, I'm having this tough conversation on equity. How did you handle it? Having somebody that's not in the day-to-day with you is pretty important to kind of start to see things objectively and just have a thought partner with. When you have a very small team, finding those thought partners outside your team is important. The other piece is folks from industry, and this is pretty critical, I think, for go-to-market, especially in the SaaS world, finding folks who can help open doors for you. But these are relationships that they've cultivated as well, right? And so being very thoughtful about how you ask, when you ask, and being very specific in the type of support that you need from them. I think I messed this up a few times, right? I'd sit with somebody and expect them to guess how I needed their help. And so coming in with a plan and the ask in my hand, and not being afraid to be direct about it has been pretty critical, and really helps make sure that they want to help. That's the thing I think I've figured out. Like when you reach out to your network, they're excited to hear from you, and they're excited to help. You just have to give them a little guidance on how to do it.
Very helpful, both in terms of archetypes and just practically, how do you approach this? What are the nuts and bolts? Linda, reflections on network development from your end?
Yeah, I actually loved that last part, Jules, of this positive intent, and that the other side is probably just really happy to do it, right? The same way you would be very happy and willing to give feedback, to give advice, is how it's getting received on the other end, right? Networking can sometimes feel like this strange and foreign word, but really it's just friendships and relationships. I think that the one thing that I would flag is it has to be intentional, because you have to dedicate time to it, right? Whoever within your network, whether it's investors, whether it's other founders, whether it's friends, it is something that you have to spend time in and put yourself out there to some extent. So some things that I've found really work for me is to keep in touch with the people that know you already and that you've worked with in a prior life, right? To me, even if maybe it's a partner that you've met with a couple of times, right? But first impressions are everything, and also the rapport that you establish. Let's say it's a longer building relationship, also really matters, right? So how can you ensure that you're keeping those relationships live, right? That you're catching up with them, especially when you don't need something from them, right? I just think that's so important. And it's also a really fun part of the growing in your career, right? To see kind of where people have been, to see people that saw you at a different phase of your career growing into different places and shining in different places. And then investors wouldn't, have to put that out there for the purpose of this event, certainly. But absolutely, investors lean into them, right? They do a lot outside of just putting the paycheck into your company. And they have so many relationships, and every investor has a different strengths as well, right? So how can you lean into them? And then this last one here, which is probably closest in my heart, is women friend groups. I have little pods of, a lot of them don't escape the text group, which is really upsetting because of how busy everyone is. But women friend groups and friend pods that know you both personally and professionally. What I love about this group is that they're not gonna let you let yourself down, if that makes sense. They are going to tell you the truth as it is, right? Especially in those moments when you feel like you don't want to push anymore. They're not going to let you do that. And they're going to push you forward to be the best that you can be, both professionally and personally. So those are some of the areas where I found a lot of strength.
Those are really powerful insights. Thank you for sharing that. For folks who are watching this and aspire to join a startup or do their own venture, what advice would you all have based on your experiences? So, are there specific strategies or mindsets that you think were crucial for your success in this startup world? And Tess, maybe we start with you on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll touch on kind of the founder piece first. I never thought I would be a founder. I saw myself as an operator, someone who had been in the startup ecosystem for a bit and had found a lot of success in kind of helping founders, helping them scale, solving problems for them. And I think I had a lot of internalized bias about what a founder looked like, someone who was a visionary, who had kind of blind faith in themselves and what they were doing, and who would just shoot for the moon and do whatever it took to succeed. And frankly, someone who didn't look like the people on this call. And then I had the opportunity to become a founder and work on solving a problem that I really cared about and building a solution I knew needed to exist. And so with advice from mentors, I took that opportunity. And I think what I found is that becoming a founder didn't change me. I'm still an operator. I'm still very pragmatic. I'm still rational. I don't know that I would describe myself as someone with blind faith. I certainly have passion about what I'm doing, but I'm a realist. And I think that skill set is really uniquely valuable for a founder. I think it makes me good at what I do. It makes me a good partner to my other co-founders. And I think I would say don't undervalue yourself. Don't discredit that skill set. Don't discredit the ability to get things done and to ask the tough questions and to make people really back up their ideas and what they're doing, because that makes just as good of a founder as blind faith or shooting for the moon does. And I think that's especially important for a lot of women to recognize and to kind of be able to take that leap and know that what you contribute, regardless of what it is, it can be anything, can be just as valuable.
That's such a valuable observation about defying conventional norms of what a founder, quote unquote, looks and sounds like. So thank you for sharing that. Jules, anything on that point to pick up on?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think similar to some of the comments on creating a network in general, I think about success as a founder is surrounding yourself with people you trust, and finding the right co-founding partner, and somebody who complements you, not just from a skill set perspective. Right, I'm not technical, so it was very important. I found a CTO that came with the right skill set there, but I also had to find somebody who complemented me from sort of the more subtle things. Right, so my CTO can be more aggressive than I am and think we have just a silly example, but price higher, and I'll be a conservative insurance person who's trying to avoid the risk of somebody saying no. And so to have that counterbalance has been pretty critical, and knowing what your own strengths and weaknesses are so you can kind of put the right folks and temperaments around you, I think is pretty important. And in a similar vein, I think those first few hires are critically important because they're going to disproportionately impact culture. They're going to disproportionately help you kind of get the message out to the next employees that come in, and really thinking about what that persona looks like. And in my mind, it's somebody who's pretty scrappy, they have a spike in an area, but they can wear a bunch of different hats, and just are excited to kind of wear those different hats at the same time. And so I think the people piece is something that I think you can't over index on. And maybe the last piece of advice I got from one of my pre-seed investors was essentially like, when you don't know what to do in early days, there'll be days where you're just like staring in front of your computer with like no idea what to do next. Just pick up the phone and call somebody. And through those conversations and through talking to people, you will unstick yourself, and much faster than just seeing if staring at your computer for another 30 minutes that magically unlocks something. So I think those pieces tie in back together, and that's another way to kind of lean on your network in a way. That makes sense.
I love that you said just like pick up the phone and call someone. Because I'm like, people that like, even if you don't know if you want to be a founder, right, or get in, like just get in the game, right? Is the other kind of piece of advice. Like find a startup maybe that you're interested in and join, and be curious. And I always say too, you got to know what you don't like to know what you do like, right? So even if you kind of just jump in, you're going to learn something that's going to put you on the path of where you're supposed to be. So it's kind of the version of pick up the phone there. Just jump in. Don't wait for it to be perfect.
And I would also say every piece of the journey adds on to itself, right?
Yes.
Even the parts that are hard and slow,
Yeah.
right? Those are the parts where you learn how to do it better and faster the next time.
That's right.
I love that. I love that. And I can't get over Tessa's comment about being a realist as a founder and CEO. That's awesome. And we need to see more realists in these types of roles.
I love the emphasis on a bias towards action generally, but also the importance of self-awareness and an appreciation of your own superpowers, because certainly everyone on this call is towering in specific areas, and then the ability to build out networks and teammates that complement that. You also all in your own way sort of started to hint at challenges that are inevitable and come up as part of startup land. And so thoughts on how to, building on Jules's terms, unstick yourself when you're in moments that are feeling particularly tough. Angie, maybe coming back to you, what are some of the challenges you faced as a leader in the startup ecosystem? What have you learned from those experiences?
Yeah, it definitely comes with its array of challenges or opportunities, right? But I think that's kind of why we're in it, to tackle those problems and challenges. And I would say one of the more difficult things that I've experienced, is as that founder, is having that ability to also kind of focus up, out, and on the future. Right. A lot of even my answers that I've talked about today are all about solving problems for our partners. And I could stay in that all day, every day. Right. That's clearly where I'm super passionate about and where I love being. And I could be in there, like I said, all day. But how do you make that time to focus out on all the other things? Because if that's just what I was focused on, right, there would be a lot of balls that drop. I have an amazing co-founder, right? But there would be, we'd need that time to focus out and see, like I said, around those corners. And so it's really about kind of being disciplined to create that space when you don't want to, right? When it's a little more, challenging, because when we're in our superpower, we can, like I said, go on forever. But when it's stuff that's a little bit outside of our comfort zone, it just really takes that discipline to make the time to clear the noise around you, to kind of focus on those areas as well. I don't know if it necessarily gets easier, right, through all that, but it just, it starts to flow a little bit better. It's a muscle that you build, right? And we're constantly building those muscles on the new skills and the new areas that we need to focus on.
That's a really interesting framing. Can I ask a little bit more, Angie, about that? How have you built that discipline into your day-to-day? What has that looked like for you?
Yeah, it's I think a couple, just creating that space and that time, on the calendar. I know that sounds kind of pretty simple, but writing down that this is the time and the space that I'm going to do this, as well as then on the flip side of that, also removing myself some things, having that trust. And we have an amazing autonomous team.
Mhm.
So, even though I love being in the weeds with some of our partners and customers, I've got amazing people who can do that as well, right? So it's that balance of letting go and then, where you want to lean in, and then leaning in where it's maybe not natural for you to lean in. And it's really, just like, kind of setting that time up, sticking to it, doing it when you don't want to, right? Doing it anyway. And that's really, and it does eventually get a little bit more easier because it becomes a habit at that point. But that's kind of how I've leaned into it. No necessarily special sauce into it, just the hard work and grit around it.
That's such a helpful perspective, how you scaffolded it for yourself, specifically within your calendar, and then that observation that over time that starts to become more natural and a habit. So thank you. Linda, what about as you reflect on challenges and lessons learned, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to play off of something that Angie said. And I think about this all the time of like balls in the air, right? And I think as an entrepreneur or working at a startup, the reality is there's a bunch of balls in the air at the same time, right? So I think the challenge is figuring out which balls need to catch, but also which balls can't drop, but also which balls you need to be throwing up in the air that's net new, right? So I think that is what makes it so complex, but also probably fascinating for certainly the folks here, and what I love about the job. And so, what's challenging about being an entrepreneur? It's really, how do you differentiate yourself when you're just startup, literally just starting up, right? And you're playing these competitive spaces like payments and SureTech, right? With these huge players, right? With a ton of resources. And I think one way to do that is really to lean on the shoulders of the bigger players in the ecosystem to the extent that it makes sense for your business model, right? So how do you build alliances that play on each of their strengths, similar to how you might use your resources internally, right? With talent, how can you build alliances externally that really highlight what you're able to do? So as an example, for us at Skipify, as a startup in the space, we're about innovation and agility and bringing others in, right? That's something that we can offer to the bigger players or even just other players in the ecosystem that they might not be able to do themselves, right? However, they're bringing in resources, lots more resources than we do, even though, we're well resourced. And that established reputation, right? One of the things that I really love is when we're able to do press releases, right? How can you lean on the eyeballs, the millions and billions of eyeballs that some of your bigger partners might have that you don't yet, right? But so yes, absolutely leaning on the strengths that you have as a startup in the ecosystem and building the networks so that you can put yourself out there in a bigger way.
Those are great. Thank you. I want to circle back to where we started, which was actually some pretty sobering statistics about the underrepresentation of women in financial services. And so would love to learn more from you all what you think the industry, whether that's the venture capital industry or the financial services industry, could do better to support diversity and inclusion at the operating and founder level.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot that can be done, and I think it requires work. And one of my favorite things to say is you're not going to just get the inbound from women ready to start a company in a lot of cases. You have to go out and find them, and people from underrepresented backgrounds as well. And in a lot of cases, the place that you find them is earlier in their careers before they kind of create before they have these ideas about what a founder looks like, before they decide that it's not a career path that they want to go down, and support them and help them and answer questions for them. And I think like one thing investors could do is ask their portcos, who is a person in a mid-level of your organization who you think would become a founder one day or would excel at becoming a founder one day. Can I talk to them? I'm not going to steal them today, but maybe in 5 years, right? I could connect with them and support them and help them found a company. And I think having that long view is critical. And it's not just something to put on the women and the people from underrepresented backgrounds. You can't just say, oh, everyone should start a company, because that ignores all the institutional barriers to doing so. And so it really is about, if you want to see that diversity, if you want to support women and people from underrepresented backgrounds, going out, building those relationships, helping them, and catching them early so that you can really support them in a meaningful way, and not just focusing on the female founders who are out there already, because I can say it's the first day of Women's History Month and I am very busy with a lot of events, a lot of requests, and I think it's so, so great. But I never had that outreach. I never had these opportunities earlier in my career. No one ever reached out to me for those sorts of things. And I think I might have even become a founder earlier if I had, or believed that I could earlier. And that's something I aim to do for other women as well.
That's a fantastic insight. Thank you for sharing that.
Maybe consistent with a lot of that theme, but I think at even a higher level, it's continuing to invest in innovation. Right. If I think about how InsurTech has impacted the landscape of diversity within insurance more broadly, it's been pretty significant. And that's because you have smaller organizations willing to take chances on talent, getting folks early in their career, giving them opportunities to grow, and folks taking on challenges that maybe within sort of the confines of the traditional system are difficult steps to make, because they don't have sort of the whatever support looks like and is required to be able to navigate those steps. So I think by investing in innovation and creating opportunities, that's where I see the most diversity within the insurance space. And then folks are gaining experience leading, they're gaining experience with a P&L. And then if they want to go back into the traditional world that exists, they can, with a skill set that they would never have been able to really gather if they had stayed within a traditional, more legacy type insurance or reinsurance company. So I think the theme of innovation is actually a lot of opportunity for diversity go hand in hand. It's not to say it's perfect. Like InsurTech is insurance plus tech, which are not two of the most diverse worlds that are out there. And so I think part of it is, and I assume this group on this call does this, but it's just being conscious of it, right? If you think about all the different balls in the air and you're thinking about hiring and you're like, okay, I just need somebody to come in and solve this problem right now. And guess what? The first 20 candidates that you get, probably you're not going to be the most diverse pool of candidates. And so giving yourself some runway to make sure that you're not in such a rush to get the person in, that you can take the time to ensure a diversity of funnel, or else it's never going to solve itself. And I think a theme that was hit at the start is just thinking about career development, right? So as you think about creating opportunities for folks, it's giving them an opportunity to stretch and to fail and to try and to learn and do all of those things if they come in a more junior role, so that 10 years from now, they can be thinking about a founder seat.
Yeah. And a couple of maybe very tactical things to add on to that as a part of like bringing in a diverse pipeline, right? So there's two things that I always push the team to do. One is to actually get a role rec out. I feel like in early stages of startup world, it's so easy to just tap into your network and really hire someone that you've worked with previously, right? That's quick. You're going to get someone in the seat. I always encourage the team to actually write out a role requirement. And if we can, put that out, right? And I think there are especially more diverse groups. It's hard to be so well networked to be the people that come first to mind, right? If it is just word of mouth. And then the other is just to be very prescriptive with your recruiters or headhunters about the fact that you care about this, right? And the pipeline they bring in should be intentional and thoughtful. It is going to be more work to try to bring in a more diverse pipeline, but it's the work that is important and that we need to put in.
I think one tactic that I've used in the past is tell recruiters you're not going to start interviewing until they send you a diverse pipeline, right? They're very incentivized for you to start interviewing. And so if you tell them that, they will send you diverse candidates. And that's just one useful tactic.
That's a great tip. Well, I will just say, on behalf of Flourish, we are so genuinely honored to be a part of each one of your journeys. You're just incredible operators and deeply inspiring, and want to thank you for a really rich, terrific conversation today. So a big thank you from Flourish and a happy Women's History Month to everyone on this call. And to our audience members, we want to thank you all so much for joining us today. For questions regarding today's discussion, Flourish Ventures, or any of our phenomenal portfolio companies, please email us at events@flourishventures.com. And thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time.